from Luke chapter 24, beginning on page 712 in the Bible in the pew, 712. Reading a passage of one of the events that took place on the first resurrection day. Luke chapter 24, beginning in verse 13. Now behold, Jesus had risen from the dead. They had gone to the tomb, found that he was alive. The angels had told them, Jesus had told them, Mary had come back to tell them. Peter and John had gone to the tomb and found it empty. Now behold, two of them were traveling that same day to a village called Emmaus, which was 7 miles from Jerusalem. And they talked together of all these things which had happened. So it was, while they conversed and reasoned, that Jesus himself drew near and went with them. But their eyes were restrained, so that they did not know him. And he said to them, What kind of conversation is this that you have with one another, as you walk and are sad? Then the one whose name was Cleophas answered and said to him, Are you the only stranger in Jerusalem? Have you not known the things which happened there in these days? And he said to them, What things? So they said to him, The things concerning Jesus of Nazareth, who was a prophet, mighty in word and deed and word before God and all the people, and how the chief priests and our rulers delivered him to be condemned to death, and they crucified him. But we were hoping that it was he who was going to redeem Israel. Indeed, besides all this, today is the third day since these things happened. Yes, and certain women of our company who arrived at the tomb early astonished us. When they did not find his body, they came saying that they had also seen a vision of angels who said he was alive. And certain of those who were with us went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but him they did not see. And he said to them, O foolish ones, and slow of heart to believe in all that the prophets have spoken. Ought not the Christ to have suffered these things and to enter into his glory? And beginning at Moses and all the prophets, he expounded to them in all the scriptures the things concerning himself. Let's pray. Father, this morning as we come to your word, as we deal with the wonder of the resurrection, help us to hear from your heart. Help us to see your amazing grace. Help us to be drawn a little closer to Jesus, the risen Savior. We ask in his name. Amen. The reason I read this passage this morning, besides the fact that it was an account of something that happened on that first resurrection day, is because it kind of summarized what Jesus was up against as he was in this world. These on the road to Emmaus were his disciples. They were people who knew him, walked with him, saw him do miracles, heard his teaching. And yet they didn't understand. And there's been a lot of confusion about Jesus from that time on. There's confusion today. Who was Jesus? What was he all about? Some scholars, a few years back, you remember, they studied who was Jesus and wrote a book and did a series and all kinds of stuff. And when they got done, nobody knew anything more about who was Jesus than before. But that's what Jesus faced all through his life. From his disciples. They watched him calm the storm, stop the wind, and they said, What manner of man is this? Who is Jesus? The Pharisees, they quizzed him left and right to try and catch him in something and wondered where his authority came from. And he asked him where his authority came from. Because they wondered, who was Jesus? John the Baptist's disciples. John sent some disciples to Jesus and said, Are you the one who should come? Or do we look for someone else? And Jesus said, while they were there, he healed the sick, made the lame to walk, caused the blind to see. He said, Tell John what you saw and who I am.
Later on, the Pharisees are going, why don't you just tell us straight out? Are you the Christ or not? Now think about this. These are people who watched Jesus do miracles. He did miracles right in front of them. He annoyed them with miracles. And they couldn't figure it out. Who are you? Tell us plainly. Give us a sign. And Jesus said, I'll only give you one sign, and that is the sign of Jonah. And they went collectively, huh? And then Pilate, who are you? They say you're the king of the Jews. Are you the king of the Jews? And Jesus didn't answer. Then the thief on the cross, the other thief that we forget. If you are the Christ, then save yourself and us. Can't you see me hanging here beside you? Save me too. His way of saying, who are you? And if you are who you say you are, then do something for me. Then the sky got dark. And there was an earthquake. And the centurion who had contributed to making sure that he was crucified properly said, man, truly this was the Son of God. I don't know what their saying was in those days. I mean, he might have said, dude, truly this was the Son of God. But it was obvious to the most casual observer in that situation, truly this was the Son of God. And then you have those two disciples on the road to Emmaus. All the things that they had seen, all the things that they had heard, they had seen all that Jesus did. They had heard all that Jesus said. They had watched him raise people from the dead. They had watched him calm the storm. They had watched him heal the sick. They had listened to him answer question after question after question. They had heard him say, the Son of Man goes up to Jerusalem and will be delivered into the hands of the Gentiles. They will mock him and scourge him and kill him, and the third day he will rise again. We look back on that saying and we say, what is the matter with these people? Jesus said he was going to rise again. What would you have said if you had heard somebody say, before the situation, I'm going to go and die and rise again? You know what you would have said? You would have said, dude, yeah, right. Who is this man? Paul. Watch from the fringes. Paul, who had his double, maybe triple doctorate in theology. A Pharisee of the Pharisees. He knew his stuff. And as he watched Jesus, and as he heard Jesus, and as he saw Jesus in action, and as he saw Jesus hang on the cross, and then he heard that he rose from the dead, who is this man? Until he met him face to face on the road to Damascus. And all of a sudden, oh, I get it. And Paul writes. Now you can turn to the front of the bulletin. And the front of the bulletin is a miracle, just so you'll know. My amazing computer skills, but mostly the miracle of not knowing how much color ink I had in my copy. And so when I go to run the bulletin cover for Easter, a few more than regular, I set it at the number I wanted and prayed. And when the last one came out, still in full color, I said, "Praise the Lord!"